Okay, can everyone on Zoom hear me? Yay! Okay. Hey y'all, my name is Ty. This is Lawrence, Stacia, and Crispin, and then Matt is also part of the BLM at SMU team. And we're just here to ask you some questions. We did it like this format, so it's like as familial and like communal as possible because we really want to get your honest like answers, your feedback, and like you don't feel the need to be politically correct or politically censored in any way, shape, or form, because change can happen unless we're honest about it. So that's the hope for today. And we are live on all occasions, so you can go ahead and introduce yourself and what sorority fraternity you're part of. That'd be great. You can start with me.
Well, my name is Rosa. I'm a part of Sigma Lambda Gamma National Sorority Incorporated. I joined in spring 2013. I graduated SMU in December of 2015 with my bachelor's.
Congrats!
Thank you. And then I came back for round 2 because I was crazy, and graduated my master's in 2018.
Hi, I'm Belle. I'm here representing the Kappa Mu chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
My name is Matt. I'm representing Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated across all 19, and I am a senior.
Hi everyone, I'm Grace. I'm also a senior. I am, representing Panhellenic. I was in Trinal here at SMU. I dropped last summer, but yeah, I'm excited to be here. Yay.
My name is Mahesh Ramgopal. I'm a brother of Sigma Lambda Beta International Fraternity Incorporated. I crossed back in spring 18, and I'm a senior.
Awesome. Belle, could you hear everyone's answers?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Tech, y'all. Woo! Okay, so are we ready to jump in? Awesome. So this is a question mainly to Belle and Matt first. If you could tweet hashtag Black Greek at SMU, what would you tweet?
That Black Greek life may not be the dominated Greek life on campus. It doesn't have the most resources, but we are still very resourceful.
I think that if I were going to tweet something about being hashtag Black and Greek at SMU, it would just be like, we exist, we are here. I know that a lot of the times Greek life tends to refer exclusively to like white Greeks on campus. So I think that it's important that people know that we do also exist.
How can we make Greek life more inclusive? Acknowledging that MGC and MBHC are very different experiences, but yeah. If anyone can take the floor on that.
I think it starts with the university holding certain Greek organizations accountable. I think that every council that's represented here signed a statement saying how Black Lives Matter and that systematic racism is an issue that we all need to tackle. IFC, the Greek council that's not represented here, didn't. And they don't see racism as an issue. And that's not following with what the university is saying, but why are we giving them a pass on that? They're even, and it's not just race, and there are Greek life organizations in IFC that prohibit, that have national policies that prohibit homosexual members. That's not in violence with any university policy that I know. And so I think it starts at the university starting to hold Greek organizations more accountable. And it's also at another end, Greek organizations being more intentional with anti-racism. It's not just good enough to not be racist, you need to be anti-racist. And that means intentional programming on that front, trying to educate them on the cultures of your brothers and sisters and things of that nature. And I don't think, I think it's understanding that not all orgs here do that.
Yeah, for sure.
I piggyback off what you said. I think it's really great that the university does put pressure on boards to be more inclusive, but at the same time within the organization and within the sorority, they need to put pressure on their own members, because I sit on a couple of national task force, and the issue that we're running into is a couple of old heads being like, well, that's not the way it used to be, and this is not. And I'm like, well, that's And so, I mean, a while ago, I'm just gonna air all our business, but a while ago, like, Signal and Gamma was made fun of because they could, some news got out there that we were basically trashing one of our founders, but she was talking some racist mess. And so, like, for me, I was like, I have no problem, like, throwing her out. And it's stuff like that. I think, like, organizations really do need to make a stand and realize and recognize, like, we're not accepting any, like, BS from anyone. Like, you have to abide by this. Like, this is just the right thing to do. So yeah, you're right. Like, the university also has to put pressure, but also, like, within the org, we have to make a stand. We can't be like, well, they're sisters and all that. Like, even with my own blood sisters, you know, we've had, like, serious racial talks, and yeah, it's always been about, like, internal accountability as well.
Yeah.
I feel like think that the university has to be a bit more proactive. So I think being like tapped in to like racial problems and like being tapped into like the Black community on campus is like a good first step.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm actually going to get into CIP later. And feel free to go back to any questions because I sometimes tend to like plow along for no reason. But how does our admin handle different sides of Greek life differently? And do you have any examples of that? If not, that's totally okay.
I'll say, like, so I've been a young for 7 years, and throughout my time, like, whether it be chapter advisor or as an active one, I believe our Greek council, like, advisor, our main liaison on campus has changed, like, 3 or 4 times. And it changed, I believe, like 2 or more times, like talking to just sisters that were 3 years ahead of me. But I'm not so sure if that's the case with ISC or Panhell. I think they have a more steady form of like support.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it seems with a lot of NPHC and NDC, we have more turbulent like support in the sense of like we always have people coming in and out. So I will say that's one thing that administration kind of lacks on and should probably put more focus on, whether it be resources or, yeah, I mean, yeah, mostly just resources at this point.
Right.
Just a focus of raising our voices, amplifying our voices. I think that's the biggest thing.
And piggyback off of what she said on resources, since 1996, the only housing demolished on this campus, Greek life housing demolished on this campus, has been multicultural or historically Black fraternity and sorority housing. Most recently with the Multicultural Greek Council house. And since the MGC house has been demolished, the size of MGC has decreased dramatically. And originally the university administration said they would find appropriate housing, and instead it was the students who had to go and ask for the housing. And I think that's a clear demonstration of where this university's priorities lie. And actually, when a group of MGC students went to go meet with Dr. Majay and request that would it be possible for the university to also, like, could they cover part of the housing? Like, could they help finance it? They were actually laughed at. I mean, so I think funding for things like that is clearly, it's just a key highlight of how where these university priorities lie. Because we don't have a lot of, at least from my work, we don't have a lot of alum yet, and they don't donate significant amounts to the university, so we're not on the university's radar to that sense.
Yeah. And I'll definitely say, like, it's been an issue in general with students having to come up with the demands, the action plan, the implementation, the evaluation. It's a continuous responsibility of us to find our resources, like you said. Do you have anything, or Mel? Because I know you may feel like you can't jump in there.
I was just going to say, Panhell obviously has a lot of influence on this campus and nationwide, and I think that as an institution, it was founded to be exclusionary, and you can't really fix a system which was founded to be exclusionary. I mean, the legacy system is such a big part. You're basically guaranteed a membership, and I don't think women of color were allowed to be in Panhell until the 80s, so obviously they don't have grandparents or parents that are over that, and the dues themselves are so elitist and exclusionary as well. I mean, my chapter dues were like $2,000 a semester. So I think that the admin really needs to put pressure on institutions like Panhell that do have so much influence and could use our resources for good. But, you know, I think that we really need to be held accountable for that.
That's crazy. I could never.
That's my job, but.
Yeah, 2,000 semester. Wow.
Wait, can I add one more?
Yeah.
One thing that I do remember is, there was one semester when I was president where we all got invited to, like, I believe one of the Cox's, like, homes, and, like, all of Panhell, all of, like, NGC presidents and everybody got together, and they basically asked us to come up with a solution, and in my mind, I was sitting here, I was like, we're gonna be gone within 4 years, like, there's gonna be a new, you know, group of kids, like, freshmen here, like, running it, and they're not gonna know what we've talked about. However, you guys will be. Like, you guys have been in this room, you guys continue to be in this room, and it just seems like we're having the same conversation, and you're like dragging your feet. So, like, I do want to put, like, more onus on administration because I feel like they're here longer than, like, students are.
Yeah.
And, like, not every case like me who, like, stays in Dallas and come back or whatever, you know? Like, out of all the alum that I know of, there's only a handful of us still in Dallas. Like, everybody else is spread out. So that's what I'm talking about my chapter. Like, I don't know how everybody else works out. But, yeah, no, it just brought something, it brought up that experience.
Yeah.
You know?
And that makes me think of a question, because the administration is here for so long and we don't see change. Do you think that at any point they will begin to change or apply pressure or give resources? I see my love over here laughing.
I think if it does happen, that it'll be.
I think also, like, part of it comes down to, there's like two aspects of this, and one of them is also, where are you allocating your, like, resources personnel-wise? The Greek BLM office has 2 people right now, Ron Atkinson and Ashley Fitzpatrick, 2 people running all these chapters, and part of that's regional, and part of that comes from the fact that in the South, predominantly white Greek life is so well funded and so well supported, they don't need the university to help them out, but that puts those of us that aren't in those organizations at an insane disadvantage. Whereas in the north, in northern schools, like my brother went to Minnesota, you see immense support from the Greek Life Office for those organizations and how much they have from their advisors and stuff like that. And then I think the other thing is that I think the only way to get the administration to start implementing change is to get outside perspective into the administration. You can't just, to a certain extent, I understand the want to promote from within, but sometimes you need to bring in someone with a completely fresh outlook from a different university, because I feel like some of the people who have been at this university for a long time are hesitant to change things, kind of to what Rosa was saying, that, like, this is the way it's been, this is the way it always will be. I think a great example of that is the new Dean of Residence Life and Student Housing has been, like, a great influence and effect in helping us achieve our goals in terms of when we were trying to find housing. In her first month on the job, she was already meeting with us, which I think is a great sign. But, like, I think that's a great example of just, you need that outside perspective every now and then.
I mean, I basically don't want to say it, but, like, Turner is one of the longest serving, like, university presidents in the country. Like, wow, he's been here since, like, I grew up. I want to say since the 80s or something. And he came from Ole Miss. And if you know anything about Ole Miss,
Yeah.
he still has a giant portrait up there, because I was there a couple, like, years ago. And so I think it goes all the way to the top, like, just in all honesty. And I believe it was you at the BLM protest a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
That stated, like, he wasn't even there, like, they put barricades up, and that's been the tone that I've seen over the last couple of years. Like, he's always there just for the, like, photo, like, opportunity, and then he just goes. Or he's not there, like, when it really matters. So, yeah, I'm just gonna be the first one to say it here, like, he needs to go.
Yeah, I would like to open that up, but do you guys agree with that statement about President Turner? Because a lot of it does boil down to, can our president just, like, answer our demands with, like, clarity? Because we can't go through the chains. We only have the top. So I don't know, what do you guys?
I mean, just put it bluntly, it's time for him to go. Like, I mean, you've been here for such a long time, and clearly there's still been issues that you didn't solve. And it's time for a fresh perspective, but I don't think it's just him. I think like Dr. AJ probably needs to bow out for a little bit. I think that he's actually instituted policies that are adverse to multicultural and historically Black Greek, like even though the fact that he is a historically Black, a member of historically Black fraternity, but he's done some policies that really affected us. The one that comes to mind is new member presentations. I mean, he instituted a policy that it used to be that 3 days after they join the organization, you only have 3 days to put on a new member presentation to reduce hazing, which logically doesn't make sense because you're compressing a time frame to prepare for what's a really hard event to prepare for. And so a lot of organizations, because they cared about their members, didn't pull one out. They're like, we're not going to make you go through hell for 3 days just so that you can put on a presentation, and that adversely affected us. I mean, I think it's time for really take a hard look at our vice presidents and president and be like, do we really need them here? Are they really affected the change we want?
Like I used to work in student affairs when I was doing my master's. So when he came in, I was one of the graduate assistants, and I heard a lot of rumblings. He was never for us. Like he was never for NPHC or anything. He came with an agenda, and it wasn't specifically to kill NPHC and NGC Greek life. It was just to kill Greek life in general. Because that was on the heels of all the deaths that were happening across the country because of hazing.
Right.
So that's why he came in with that agenda, and that's, yeah. Watch him get sued.
No. If I work for the Dean of Students Office, if I have an ET, we'll get sued together. So I guess I'd like to switch gears to talk about the treatment of individual students within the orgs. And specifically, I like to just start off with a question that came in from our Insta Live, which is, how welcoming is SMU Greek life to the LGBTQ plus community? Because this is not just an issue with our Caucasian counterparts. This has been an issue also in our African American orgs too. So, what do you guys? What's your opinions?
I would say not welcoming at all, but I would also say that part of that is because there isn't a lot of exposure. A lot of the people that I've met in Panhell individually would be very welcoming, but as a whole, it seems like, we have never gotten educated on it. These people are coming from very sheltered backgrounds where maybe they haven't, had a friend or family member in the LGBTQA community. Yeah. So, and it's the same thing with Panhell, we have, diversity. I think that it really starts with exposure and education, and that's a lot.
I hesitate to speak on a council-wide basis. Within my own course, since I've been here, I felt that we've been very welcoming. Obviously, I come from a standpoint of privilege as I'm not a member of one of those communities, but I believe at one point our chapter was 40+% members of the LGBTQ plus community, and we've had former presidents of Spectrum as part of our organization. Our president of our chapter 2 years ago was part of that community. I just think it's always be conscious, are you being welcome to those communities? I think there's a lot of implicit bias that we need to be aware of. I think it's a constant fight in the Greek community to be welcoming to those and a whole small group. And it goes back to my earlier point, you can't expect you to have a university that thinks you're going to get support.
I would say specifically within my org at campus, we're pretty accepting. Have a couple of sisters that identify within the community. But it has been I will say that there hasn't been as many as Beta, for example, in regards to percentage. Nationally, we just passed a resolution or something. I forget what it's specifically called, but basically now allow transgender people to, as long as to join. And that was a momentous occasion for the organization in general, because like you said, sometimes it within the community, it's not as accepted as we'd like it to be. But yeah, no, it can be tough, especially when you look at historically what our fraternities and sororities defined as, and it's men and women. If you don't fall in that binary, or if you don't ascribe to those genders, how do you navigate that? And so yeah, I can see why that would be a very important question for a lot of people. So it really does depend on the group you're going towards at the end of the day, which is unfortunate because you would hope that you just walk on and open arms. But
And, just to like feedback on that, like, she brought up a really good point, which is that, like, there's a big differentiation between your local org, your chapter, and national.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I would honestly say there are homophobe brothers and members of national that we don't get along with for that exact reason. And, we also passed a recent resolution similarly at a national level. It's
I think sometimes it's like difficult for me to answer questions like that because there's a bit of a disconnect between like my experience with like my like orgs, just like across like chapters and states and stuff like that, and like my like experience with my chapter specifically.
Yeah.
I do recognize that like nationally, like Alpha has made several statements like condoning like homophobia and transphobia, but just like with my history, I still have like I've come across other alphas that are very homophobic and very transphobic. So the fact that you're like a member of this organization, so I think like both like from like top down and like on like a small level.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, for Delta specifically, in that process of choosing who's going to be online, we're never asked about our acceptance of other identities. We're never, made aware of like who can be on your line and how to come across people that you don't know as well. So I thought about that. It's like hazing. And are we combating that enough on SMU's campus? Are we combating, and I guess I would say actions that can be disciplined, because I'd also include like drug abuse in that, alcohol abuse in that, partying. Like, are we disciplining that enough, if that makes sense? Are we, or do we condone that too much on this campus?
Yeah, we have a drug process. If you drink and if we catch you doing drugs while you're online, we will kick you off. We don't believe in any of that. Since I'm an alum, I'm gonna say I don't know the terrain anymore. I don't know if like hazing has gotten better or worse. I don't know like what I don't know how that looks. But yeah, I would say like specifically within my org, like when it comes to specifically drugs and stuff, like yeah, no. And I'll be frank, like when it comes to what we think of like traditional hazing, we've let up on that. Yeah, no, like now right now we have so many sisters that sit on like so many national boards and like just all that we see the bigger picture. We recognize and understand why hazing isn't what we thought it like was supposed to be. When we thought it was supposed to like be to prove yourself in your letters, or if you don't do it, you don't mean it. But in reality, like it's a huge risk for the organization. You can really like bankrupt your entire org, and you can actually bankrupt your entire org, like no matter how old you are. Because I remember a Sigma once told me that there was a lawsuit that happened within their organization that almost like bankrupted to the point where they didn't know if they were going to be able to continue. And like that's 100-year-old like organization. Like that's not something you can play lightly. So when you put it into that perspective, like you realize like maybe waking them up at 4 a.m. to go run ain't it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's my piece.
I don't really, I hate just like say like I don't like know what's going on like on campus, because the only thing I know is what the university says. I think it's hard for a university to say this will be the one time I will hear you. I think it's a hard thing for police. You don't know, like that's a lot of people to keep track of, and to like you have to have a security member there, like whenever the new touch bus or lines there, like that's a huge amount of resources that have to be invested in it. In regards to like alcohol and drugs in intake, why? Why would that even be a thing? We also run a drug process, and my thing's always there should be if you shouldn't want to tear them down to prevent your organization. You're trying to make them, help them become the best version of themselves, they can help you cure for the best version of itself. If that's not the purpose of your intake process, you need to reevaluate why you're part of this organization. And every organization here that's represented here has a history of hating these guys. And we're not gonna go at a national level, we're not gonna like deny that to any extent, but it's being vigilant and being intentional about understanding what hazing looks like. Because hazing isn't also just physical, it's a lot of emotional things. Are you creating a power dynamic or things like that to that extent? So it's being intentional with that. But again, I think that's something that's very hard for the university administration.
Big.
Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is a non-hazing organization. Hashtag these pearls do not haze. And I think that for a lot of organizations that aren't white on campus, we're like kind of aware that even though there is like the non-hazing, like SMU has made a firm stand that they don't tolerate hazing, it's an even firmer stand for us because we get less leeway with that sort of thing. So like whereas I won't make any assumptions about who hazes and who doesn't, but even if we all hazed at the same rate, it's very likely that MGC or NPHC organizations would be punished at a higher rate and more harshly. So I think that the university, in terms of over-policing us, they like hit that nail on the head. I think that a lot of organizations are afraid to haze, and rightfully so. I just wish that that extended into like equally into each and every council.
Also, I apologize now. I don't be intimidated by the camera in any way, please. Does anyone have?
I would say, one thing that's really important in that, like, distinction, because you're right, I think it comes back to the alumni of those organizations, because I was like, as we were waiting outside, I mentioned like I've had some like explicit racist experiences with IFC like members, and they were very proud and bold to tell me like, oh, the reason we get away with it is because our alumni donate so much to the campus, like this and that, and the reason we don't allow like people of color to our org is because like our alumni won't donate if we do and stuff. Like I've been told this to my face, so like yeah, I agree with you. Like I think it all comes back, like SMU allows it to happen to some degree because of like the amount of financial influence these orgs carry. Which I mean is like, it's sad that it comes down to like just money talks, and I mean, yeah, but for sure, yeah.
And kind of going off that, I also think that there's kind of a gender double standard with that. Panhell also has a lot of genders that I know, but me, as far as I know, when there's such a strict like membership, then I see other fraternities that have strong genders, and I think it's just that boys being boys attitude that is so ingrained in this campus and this society that they just get away with it and don't really want that.
I agree with everything everybody said. I mean, I'm sure we all have heard something like stories about somebody doing somebody doing that, and it's kind of out of control. But like you said, like there's only so much that the universities can do to like police that and like crack down on that. So I think the responsibility will first and foremost always like fall onto like the fraternities for taking care of that. To be honest, I'm not sure how you incentivize them to stop doing stuff like that, but I know it's got something to do with money. Always does. So.
And also, one thing, like this is like one of the few things where freshmen do have ethos power. If an org is trying, you're like the biggest recruiting group for a lot of organizations. If there's an org trying to make you do something that you don't think is helping you, don't join that org. Speak with, like we say, speak with your vote. The same thing with organizations. Speak with your people.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And that is why I totally agree that it's so hard to police, because you really have to sit. It's almost like you have to sit someone down and be like, that is not love or care, or like that is not okay for you to go through that. And that's like an individual basis type thing of education, because some people inter-college excited or like apprehensive of that, because they think that's what it takes, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes, and, you know, there's no way to get around that. If you're set on that, I mean, and it's a secret to everyone, it's hard to get around.
And that's why it's like, it's so important to like have people that have like gone through that speak to people that are looking to get into it, because you know, a lot of these very like young impressionable people have like a certain, like you said, like a certain ideal in mind of like the type of person that they need to be, and they think I need to go through this in order to reach that point. But when you have somebody that's been through that, and they're like, yeah, it wasn't worth it, that's probably the greatest deterrent that person could receive. So I think more communication on that front is very.
That's such a hard topic. I hate that topic because it's like, even if you want to tell someone, but no one else is, I mean, basic psychology, you're not. So that, I hate that. Did anyone have anything else? Okay. I think we're nearing like the end of the questions, but one thing we definitely did want to ask is, what are actionable items that, and we've touched on this, like more resources and education, but what are actionable items that this university can take? Like, what would be your list of doing this? What's something that you would ask? And I know we've all had to say those things, like to someone at some point, but if we could like put that on record, that'd be great.
My first item would be space. All the Greek councils need to have equal opportunity for space, their own prospective spaces on campus.
Yes.
The only NPHC and NPC space that's left is the rock garden in behind the parking lot that most people can't find. I think they have pay for that too. Yeah, I was like, I remember like having a dog for that. So that's first of all an insane concept. So getting equal space for those organizations is critical. Next is equal opportunity for visibility. Pure manpower allows IC and Panhellenic to do homecoming. When you have an org of 12 people or an org of 8 people, you don't have the manpower to do homecoming to the same extent. So it's figuring out a way to work with those students to figure out what does equal representation look like at these kind of events. And I think those are my two big requests from the administration, because I think given those resources, all the organizations should be thorough.
Thank you, yes.
I think like reform in terms of like cultural intelligence and cultural like intelligence.
They can't hear you on the line.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think reform in terms of like cultural intelligence and like cultural intelligence programs is one of the most important things, because there's just, it's not where it used to be. Like I had the police call on my probate because they just didn't understand like the culture, why we were like dressed up like that, have like that cultural knowledge to know like why that would be why we did it the way we did. So and my mom was there, so she would have fell out and real upset. So yeah, just like reform that area, and not just for like to like help bridge the gap between like across like councils and like across like racial lines, but also just for everybody safe. That was dangerous.
Yeah, I'm sorry that moment had to occur, because that could have gone very badly.
No, I mean, yeah, that's kind of what I was ruminating on, is some sort of cultural sensitivity training. I really, aside from freshmen holding the power of choosing which organization I do believe that the university at the end of the day they allow who can't, like which organizations can be on campus. Like the idea that there's an organization that at a national level does not allow LGBT like plus like members, in my opinion, shouldn't be allowed at SMU. And SMU should like revoke that offer. And that's the way that I think, like if SMU is really gonna make a stand, it should be at that point where we have a set of like rules and rules and ethics that we're gonna abide by, and if you don't meet that standard, we don't want you here. And yeah,
cultural sensitivity training to make sure that the organizations keep up with that, and if they don't meet up to that, or if there's like enough like complaints or experiences like that I've gone through, that others have gone through, that should never like happen, yeah, boot them, just boot them. Like I don't, yeah, that's where I come from. Like there should be a strict, like SMU really does hold the power as to what type of Greek life is on campus and who is allowed at the end of the day.
Yep.
Like, you know, at the end of the day, SMU, like, no matter what the organization wants, you know, like SMU is the one that says yes or no. So, yeah, if you see an org acting up, SMU is the one that's responsible at the end. Like, yeah, at the end of it, like they're the ones that can say, yeah, they gotta go or not. So, yeah, let them know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I would just kind of agree with what was said, and I think training is spot on what's needed, especially with panel. I think that there are so many people in my organization that have the potential to really help and make a difference and bridge the gap between all of our works. But as an organization itself, I never received training. No one received training. And like I said, a lot of these people are coming from completely, cis white environments, and they've never even been exposed to any cultural diversity, so they've never even had the chance to, help bridge that gap and promote diversity. And so I think if we give people in Panhellenic, we're going to have to.
Definitely. I also just received a question from the Zoom room. Love to see it. And it kind of goes along with what you guys are saying, which is how can Panhell members support chapters in NPHC or MTC without invading safe spaces?
That was the first step. I'm a chapter president. I haven't been reached out to yet, but like, first send an email, you then have that conversation. I think preliminary conversations is how it gets going. Don't ask us to teach you how to scroll.
Wow.
Then I got a lot, not here for it. But I mean, we're obviously open to collaborative events, but we want events that serve our purpose. You can throw pizza parties and ice cream socials all day, that's not going to make a change or a difference. And then be willing to understand there's a resource difference, and we would, and that's going to be the biggest hindrance most times. It's not going to be split 50-50 because we can't afford 50. And come in with that understanding that there was numbers, so it might seem like the work is divided unequally, but each of our members is putting in 110% to get that done. So understanding that. So I think that's my biggest reach out and see where it's.
Yeah, I think every organization has different needs, but it ultimately does boil down to reaching out. I know when MTC House did exist, and right after the 2016 election, they put up a banner that said, "We won't be all right." It was torn down by somebody. But I remember that Panhellenic did send, it was a small gesture, but like, just treat spots. And it's just like, we're very sorry that this happened on campus, and like, we don't want you to feel alienated. And, from where from 2012 when I started to like, seeing that was a huge thing for us to just know like Panhellenic was there and like recognize that hurt. So just stuff like that, it's very hard to be an ally, not encroach on other people's like safe space. And I think like to some degree, like people understand that, as long as you're coming from from a well-intentioned place, and you're not trying to like drunkenly join our souls, yeah, things should be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does come out to like just the intentions of like reaching out really do matter and make a difference.
They really do. I also want to say, I always say this at all of our events, honestly. It comes down to, are you challenging your peers though? Are you challenging your leaders though? Because you want to help, but you have like people who are invading our space that you're not holding accountable. So I get frustrated by that question sometimes. So like the bare minimum is that your work isn't actively racist against ours, and that's happening consistently. So I'm like, can you start there maybe? I don't know.
Honestly, I would prefer if they took the time to have engaging discussions within their own organization about how we have these efforts. Take the time to do that instead of a singular event within MTC or an MTC. Like, it is more helpful for you to educate your own members on how to be anti-racist and guide your organization in that way than to just throw.
And I feel like one sort of that is kind of like the children of that a lot of words do. Oh, we did our duty, like we did our due diligence, that's it, like something not racist or discriminatory. So I think internal education.
I just got another question, exciting, and I think it's maybe one of our last questions, but the question is, how do Black orgs on campus or multicultural orgs on campus, how is the community in between those orgs? Does that make sense?
Like MDC and PhD?
Yeah, and within MGC and within PhD, do you feel like the community is strong and inviting and there's no issues between? I'm paraphrasing, they did not ask that, I asked that, but yeah.
Like I said, from what I've seen.
I think it changes so often. I think because to like what Rosa brought up, like who's running this organization at this time. For the time I've been here, their MDC and PhD have always gone along. I think it would be great if we did even more together. I'm guilty of not doing it. I don't think that happened just as much with the next person. I think within MGC, I think there's actually steadily been an increase in more council unity over time over the last 3 years, but I think that can always be more. It's just, there's like this fine line between being a council and being your own organization as well, and it's very hard to navigate very smaller councils. So, council unity is important for us to also rise since we are so small, but to a certain extent, we also have to be our own organization.
No, I'm saying that like relationships between, they've ebbed and flowed. I know when specific lines in Jada and Gamma had like multiple Black members, a lot of MDC did get upset, and that's just like going back on the historical thing, where I mean, just the way that I boiled it down to is that we were, and this seems crass, but we're already competing for a limited amount of resources on campus, and the way that we think about it is, oh, well, that was like, you're looking at people that like already were just like thinking about us and like you've taken them somehow, you know? But I think that was back then when we knew less. Like, honestly, it's gotten a lot better. I think, you know, things have always, like, it has been closed, but it's gotten a lot better in the org. I mean, I can only speak for MDC. I haven't been a spy in anymore. But yeah, I mean, it could be better. I'm gonna be frank. But again, it always comes down to I think it's not, I don't really think that, oh, they're in a different org, like screw them. I really do think I want my org to prosper. There's not that many resources right now. And like, it's very survival of the fittest mode. And when that happens and you're just like fighting for like scraps, like it does become a little, I don't want to say savage, because that seems rude, but it becomes a little cutthroat in some sense, you know, because you have love for your org and you want to see them flourish, but at the same time, like the other org also wants to see themselves flourish, but there's only so many like people that know them or know them PhD. So I think that's where a lot of the divisiveness really boils down to. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's personality-wise, I don't think there's any issues.
I'm like throwing shade at each other before guys going on the boulevard.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
It's like sports teams.
if you really like, if you really want to help organizations that are minority predominant on this campus, you need to make sure more of your partners. At the end of the day, you need to just like, first of all, stop making the school so damn expensive. That's the first step. Become an APEC school instead of building a new athletic performance center and building our teaching education.
And $3 billion a year.
Yeah, cut that kind of salary, just keep rebuilding. But like, seriously, at the end of the day, if you want to see all like these organizations prosper, if you're more intentional about making sure that people of color who are actually admitted to school and could attend this school feasibly.
Another thing though is the idea, like moving past, and I mean, like I just said a couple seconds ago, but moving past the idea that like MDC and PhD are just for people of color. Because not growing up, but like while I was at SMU, I had a lot of people that came up to me and they're like, if I had known about MDC, like I would have loved to like, give it a shot, but I'm in ISC now, or I'm in like, Panhell now, or like the age-old question, is MPC and MPHC for white people? And I'm like, yes, like you can like yes, I have white brothers and sisters, like come on. But yeah, like also that kind of education as well, just recognizing that all Greek life is for everyone, and we have to really like historically, yes, we do have that we have that history that we should honor, but recognizing that in the future it's more inclusive and it goes beyond the perception of what we built, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm an Indian and historically Latino.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. If you embody the principles that we want you to embody, welcome.
Yeah.
But I would rather, but on the flip side of that is that I know that many people in organizations like ours would rather see our work go down than have it just filled for quantity. I would rather have my chapter now exist next year than have it filled with people that don't embody this principle and just want it there for a part of it.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. Oh, I was going to say, I think, like, I totally agree because one thing, I just had an interaction earlier today in my theater class where they were congratulating me on becoming a Delta, and one thing they said was, it seems so cool that it's a majority white class, of course. It seems so cool that you actually get to experience sisterhood and like love in your ward. And I wish that IC like had that experience, and I wish I was like, you can. And we're a public service organization, so you can, and we can work better to make that known. But also don't be intimidated because that's problematic as well. So yeah, because I know that this experience would be a lot healthier for some of our students. But I guess the last question would be, is there anything that I didn't ask or that you didn't say that you feel like needs to go on record that may be seen by like some, I don't know, anything?
I'll add to what Mahesh said, Argentina's $93 million.
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
Not to take long.
What you said?
No, that was his starting salary like a while ago. He's one of the top paid like presidents in the US. His salary is way above 3 million now. He hasn't reported his salary in the last like 5 or so years, if I'm not mistaken. He's walking like he doesn't need 3 million. He doesn't need whatever he has now, which is probably well above that now.
And it makes me sick that our dining hall workers had a GoFundMe. Our like only housing on campus just got shut down, and now it's a dire house situation, but you make $3 million. That's sick.
And you can write off your house.
It's like that, I don't think it's like, why are we giving housing to the highest paid member of the SMU district? Why are we paying for the housing for the guy who literally makes the most? Like, you can have dining staff that can't afford their day-to-day necessities, but we're gonna pay for the housing of a guy who can buy a house in Highland Park with no mortgage? Like, seriously?
Yeah. Thank you for opening that up. Argentina's gonna love this video.
He's just sitting there, just shaking his head.
Right.
Well, that's all.
Just writing it down like diploma, I'm not gonna take it away.
And it's sad that we know they're that predatory sometimes.
Yeah.
Anything else from Belle? I'm so sorry that it probably was hard to get your voice in there.
Oh, no issues. I think that you guys said a lot of what needed to be said.
Great. Best friends I've ever paid for, I guess, but it just wasn't worth it for me to stay in, and I don't think my priorities line up with that anymore, so.
Do you feel like that becomes a consensus of a lot of people, or are you an extreme outlier in that?
I would say I'm an extreme outlier. I think a lot of people are questioning why this is still a priority, especially with the pandemic as well, like why is this a concern? But I don't think, once again, a lot of people are educated on what's going on and why, rushing and like slideshows shouldn't be the priority. So I think, yeah, education.
That's a lot of bravery to drop, so wow, cool. Okay, well, thank you guys so much, literally, for coming, and like, I feel like you guys were so honest. Even though there's like 6 cameras on you right now. And I'm like so grateful that you took time out of your, so.